Welcome back to another video. So in this video, we are going to discuss about the layer 2 interfaces. So in the layer 2, you do have two different things. One will be the untag, another one will be the tag. So we'll discuss the tag traffic later on, but first we will discuss the untag one. So untag is just like Palo Alto will be acting like a bridge or maybe a switch, just a layer 2 switch. That's it. Because whenever the frame it is getting over here, the MAC address, whenever the R1 is trying to communicate with R2 and R3, so it will just behave like a switch that it will receive that packet and it will broadcast to all the interfaces and the particular R2 or the destination will reply to that packet. And the one which is not the destination, which will there that will reject the packet. So layer 2, it's pretty much straightforward. So we'll go ahead and configure the layer 2. So my intention of this lab is that once I configure the layer 2 interface of Palo Alto E1/1, 2, and 3, I should be able to communicate from R1 to R2 and R21 to R3. So let's go ahead and start configuration. So for that one, I will go back to my networks again, and I will go to the interfaces. And on the Ethernet 1/1, I will select this interface type as the layer 2 type. And now it is asking me to configure the VLAN. So currently I will not configure any VLANs, and I will create one zone. So if I go back to my topology, I will be creating L2 Untag. So I will do the same thing. That should be L2 Untag and OK. And in the advanced, you don't have nothing to do. So configuration, we are only changing to layer 2 and L zone security zone as L2 Untag. OK. And I will do the same thing for E1/2 now. Layer 2, and I will select the same zone because if we change the zone differently, so if I say this one is the L2 untag 1 for example, and this one is L2 untag 2, and this one will be L2 untag 3. So what happens is like there are three different zones. So three different zones means interzone. So interzone means the traffic will be by default block. So that's why just making things a little simpler. So I'm just having one zone so that I can assign it to all the interfaces. So we don't have to create the policy by default intrazone is allowed. I will select the same zone, click on OK. And if you select that one, 1/3 layer 2, and I will select the zone untag, and I will go ahead and commit the settings. So now what we did was we just only set to this interface that you are a layer 2 interface and we assigned a zone, but we did not assign any VLAN for it. So if I go on the left hand side, you see that I do have a VLAN and there is nothing created. So we will click on add, and I will say that untagged. Okay, untagged, and I'm not selecting any VLAN interface. So when we come to the tagging lab, that's where we will see how we can tie that to VLAN, particular VLAN number and interface to a VLAN. So currently I am not creating, I'm just creating like an object which has a VLAN object which says untag, and there is nothing. So there is no VLAN associated to it. It's just like an object. That's an empty object. So I'll go to the task, and you see that my commit was successful. So I will close it. Now if I come back and I will go to the R1 and I will try to ping to R2. So I'm on the R1. If I say show IP interface brief, my address is 10.1.1.1. If I say 10 ping 10.1.1.2, so it should be pinging because we already assigned the interface as a layer 2. So what I will do is that the object which I created, the untag, which has no VLAN assigned to it. So what I will do, I will click on that one and I will add those interfaces 1, 2, and 3 and click on OK. Commit and commit. So what I did was I made these interfaces as a layer 2 interface. Alright, so I made this interface as a layer 2 interface, 1, 2, and 3. But whenever the traffic is coming in which is untagged, my Palo Alto is not receiving that traffic. To receive the traffic, I created an object, VLAN object with untagged name, but there are no VLAN associated to it. Okay, so there are no VLANs. So we are just saying to that interface, okay, you are a layer 2 interface. So I also am saying the 1/1, you are a layer 2 interface. And for the VLAN, you go ahead and select the untagged one, which has no VLANs in that one. So basically, you're just assigning an empty VLAN object to the interface so that it can receive the traffic and receive the packet and forward broadcast the packet to. So I'll go back here, configuration was successful. I will come back here and I will say that ping. You see that now it is pinging. So I did nothing. It's just like an empty object. I have done nothing new in that one. So we did nothing. The only thing we said to Palo Alto is that your interface 1/1 is the layer 2 interface. And for the VLAN, you go ahead with the empty object that is the VLAN object, which is untagged, which has no VLAN associated to it. So it's required. So the interface is asking us, it's like a requirement that it is asking I should have a VLAN interface or tag object associated to the interface in order to forward the traffic. So that's what I did it over here. So if I go back to my Palo Alto, so if I go to the interfaces, select the 1/1, and I selected the interface as type as layer 2, and you see that assigned interface to VLAN and the security zone. Now, as I said, what I will do is that I will try to ping from R1 to R3 also. So if I say ping 10.1.3, I'm able to ping. So now what I can do is that I can change the zone of R3. So I will change it to L2 R3. All right, so I will just change the zone now. So if I go back to a 1/3 and if I go to zones, I will create a new zone which says L2 R3. Okay, and okay, commit and commit. So what's happening here is now the interface zones are different now. L2 R3, so R3 is on a different security zone, and the R1 and R2 are on the different security zone. That means R1 and R2 should be able to communicate, but R1 and R3 should not be able to communicate, and R2 and R3 should not be able to communicate. Then we can go ahead and assign the policy. Now, this is a benefit if you want to inspect a traffic, because now the Palo Alto is acting like an IPS, so it can detect any suspicious traffic, malware and everything, and it can block the traffic because you're creating the policy now. So if I go back to Palo Alto, the configuration is good. So let's go to the R1, and if I try to ping one R10.1.1.3, now I am unable to ping it. So there is no reachability. But if I try to ping it to R2, that is 10.1.1.2, I should be able to ping it. So now I can go to my Palo Alto, I can go to the policy, and now I can create a policy saying that I want to allow L2 to R3, or I can say R1 to R3, or R1 underscore R2 to R3, and I will say that the source will be L2 untag. And I want all of the bidirectional, so I will select both of them as source and destination as both of them, because any one can initiate the traffic from any side. Application, I will select any, and the application service, I will select any action. And this is where you see that these are profile settings. So now you go ahead and select the profile, and you can assign the profile like antivirus, vulnerability protection, anti-spyware. URL filtering, file blocking, and all those things. So you do have like those kind of capabilities. So once you change the zones. So now currently my policy is good. So I will go ahead, save it and go and commit. So once that commit has completed, now my R1 should be able to communicate with R3, R2 should be able to communicate with R3. So this is how you can utilize the zones, because as soon as you provided a different zone, that means they are not able to communicate, because by default the policy says that interzone traffic is denied, but intrazone traffic is allowed. So now we have created one policy which is interzone policy, allowing all the router R1, R2 and R3 to communicate with each other. So our commit is successful. So let's go back to R1 now. So I will go to R113, and now you see that we are able to communicate with R3. All right, so this is all going as an untagged traffic, because I do have switches over here, like between here, switch 1, switch 2, and switch 3 connected. So all the traffic is going via the switch, but it is untagged. Traffic is untagged, and my Palo Alto is receiving that untagged traffic and forwarding successfully, and we are able to communicate between R1, 2, and 3. I hope this was informative for you, and thank you.